Now that you've all collected your data and saved that data to one person's Google Drive, we need to get that data to everybody so that you can do an analysis. What we're going to do here now, guys, is go into your Google Drive, whatever folder it's in, go into your Google Drive, find that file that's called exportitdata.csv, and you want to share that. So you're going to click those three buttons on the right-hand side. You're going to click Share, and then you're going to click, it should show up there. Try this again. Click Share, and then we click Share. And then we're just going to share it with all the people that were in our group. So we've got, I can see Everett Penner there. I can see some bunch of names down there, probably because Everett shared that with those people. Whatever, if you've already done it, that's great. Please just type in the email address, the school email address, not a personal email address, the school email address of people you want to share it with. Now, when you get that email, do not try to open the file from the email. Got it? Don't try to open the file from the email. What I want you to do is open it from your Google Drive. Once it's shared with you, then I would like you to pay attention to this. If you've got that file open right now, I would like you to close it. Don't look ahead. I would like you to close it because you're not going to use that file. You are going to create a copy of that file. So we're going to go in here to our three dots again. We're going to make a copy. You will do all of your work off of the copy. Does that make sense? Created a copy of, show file location here. If you lose it, just go into recent because that's the most recent one you've done. The copy of exported data. That's what's the important file here, the copy of the exported data. Let's open that now. Not exported data, but copy of exported data. Even if you are the original file owner, you are going to create a copy of the exported data. Does that make sense? Nobody, including the owner of the original file, will work from the original file. Everybody will work from a copy of that. Once you have your copy, I would like you to double click it so that you can actually open it. If it gives you the option to open in Google Sheets, then open it in Google Sheets. If it doesn't give you the option to open it in Google Sheets, and for some people, for whatever reason, it does not give you that option, you can always click on this little arrow to see if that's an option. Again, if it is, then do it. Open it in Google Sheets. If it doesn't give you the option, then I'll show you a workaround for this. Now that we have our data open, clearly way more data than we need here. Time, force, acceleration, X, Y, Z, resultant, angular velocity, all kinds of stuff that we don't need here. The vast majority of this, we are going to delete. Now, if you can't open a Google Sheets, you can't delete it, but there's a workaround, again, that I'll show you here, okay? Here's what I would like you to do at this point. I would like you to go into Google Classroom, to your Uniform Motion Lab. I would like you to, and everybody can do this, whether you're able to open Google Sheets or not, everybody's able to do this. Go into Google Classroom, click Add or Create, and add a spreadsheet, add a sheet. Now it's going to be a blank Google Sheet. That's fine. We're going to populate that Google Sheet with some numbers in just a second. Now I want everybody that was able to open it in Google Sheets to just pause for a second, okay? People who were not able to open it in Google Sheets, this is relevant to you. I want you to go back to your file. Mine's actually open in Google Sheets, but it'll work the same way. I want you to highlight all of that data. Highlight all of your data. It doesn't matter whether it's in Google Sheets or not. Highlight all of that data, and then I want you to go Control C. Control C copies it. So highlight all of your data, Control C copy it. Remember, if you were able to put it in Google Sheets, you don't need to do this step. Please just pause. If you weren't able to open Google Sheets, then this is what you need to do. Highlight all of the data, Control C, and now you're going into the spreadsheet that you just created. Go into that very first cell and click Control V. That's going to paste all of that data into a Google Sheet in your Google Classroom. Now, if you were able to open up Google Sheets, in the first place, you got a little bit of a break here, okay? If you were able to open up Google Sheets, let me just get rid of this here for a second here. Let's pretend I didn't do what I just did. Okay, you were able to open up Google Sheets. What I want you to do is go to that copy of exported data, and I want you to go highlight the 2 columns that are relevant here. And I'll tell you what, the first column that will be relevant will be time. Now, if you had 3 or 4 different trials, you got to be careful to make sure it's the time from the right trial, right? In this data that was shared with me, I only had 1 trial, easy. It's the only column with time in it. But if you have 4 columns with time in it, make sure you're picking the right column, the right time column. What I want you to do is click on the letter at the top of that column. If you weren't able to open in Google Sheets, you're not doing this step. Okay, you've already copied all of your data to your Google Classroom. If you were able to open it in Google Sheets, this is for you now. I want you to click on column B, or whatever column it happens to be for you. That's going to highlight the column, Control C, and then we're going to go back to the spreadsheet that we created within Google Classroom. Go into that first cell, A1, and go Control V. So we've just copied over time, the time data, into the first column of our table within Google Classroom. Now, the second column that we want is position. So we go back to my original data. I find position. For me, that's column H. For you, might be a different column. Highlight that letter at the top. Highlight the letter at the top, which highlights the entire column for me. Control C. Now let's go back into my Google Classroom spreadsheet. Column B, the first row. Let's go Control V, and bam, there we go. Now we have a nice table that is time and position. So it's nice for the people that were able to open up Google Sheets in the beginning, right? For the people that weren't able to open up Google Sheets in the beginning, able to open up Google Sheets in the beginning, this is what your spreadsheet within Google Classroom is going to look like. So your spreadsheet within Google Classroom will look like this if you weren't able to open your data originally in Google Sheets. Now, instead of copying individual columns to your spreadsheet in Google Sheets, you copy the whole thing. What you're going to do is delete columns. I don't want column A there, because that's just date and timestamp. So I'm going to click column A, and I'm going to right-click on your Chromebooks. That's two-finger touch, right? Two-finger touch like this. Right-click it, and it's going to give you an option to delete the column. And then I'm going to highlight, again, the columns, B through F, or whatever columns it is for you. I'm going to right-click, delete those columns. I want to delete all of the columns except for time and position. So everybody at this point should be in the same place. If you were able to open your original data in Google Sheets, all you had to do was copy those 2 columns over to the spreadsheet that you created in your Google Classroom. If you weren't able to open up Google Sheets, then you would have copied all of the data into your spreadsheet in Google Classroom and then deleted all of the columns except for time and position. But regardless of how we get there, this is where we all should be now, or at least within the next few seconds, to have our spreadsheet within our Google Classroom, right? This is a spreadsheet that we created in our Google Classroom with, at this point, only 2 columns, time and position. Now that all of us, I think, are at the point where we have just time and position for whatever trial we were using, now we need to plot the graph. Here's how we plot the graph. You may have done this before in Science 10, but please follow along with me so that you can have your memory refreshed as to how you do it. Or if your science teacher happened to tell you something slightly different, hey, we want to all be on the same page, so please follow along with me, all right? I want to highlight all of this data, time and position data. And I want to click on Insert. Highlight all of your data, click Insert. And then I want you to go down to Chart. Highlight the data, Insert, Chart. And when you do that, when you click on Chart, it should produce almost instantly a graph. Now that graph looks a little funny here. We're going to delete some data in a couple of moments here. Don't worry about that right now. I'm not worried about the shape of it too much right now. The first thing that I want to concern myself with, though, is the type of graph this is. It needs to be a scatter chart. Most times, by default, it plots a scatter chart. We will always do a scatter chart in Physics 20 and in Physics 30. We will never do a different type of graph in Physics 20 and Physics 30. Never. Now, that doesn't mean in biology that you won't do a bar graph, or in chemistry that you might not do a pie graph or something like that. I'm not saying there's no use for those things, but we will not do other types of graph in Physics 20 or Physics 30. It should always be a scatter chart. So if it's not, then I want you to make it into a scatter chart. Now, check your axes. Look at my axes. Oh, it's labeled position in meters, time in seconds. My title is position, meters, time, seconds. Right? Y-axis versus x-axis. Responding versus manipulated variable, right? We learned that in class. Everything looks good so far, except I want to modify the title. Listen carefully to this, okay? This is technically a good title, but this title in your lab write-up will get you 0 out of 1. In order to get 1 out of 1 for your title, it needs to be position versus time. Double click it. And I want you to put your initials after it in brackets. Now, don't do this. Physics 30 did a lab here the other day. I marked it this morning. One person titled their graph final velocity versus initial velocity, different for them than it was for you guys, right? And then they put in brackets BD. You need to put your initials, not mine. Not my initials, okay? Put your initials after it. That just ensures that you're not copying and pasting somebody else's graph into your work. 2 more small little things, okay? I need to delete some of this data. You can see from about 0 to 1 seconds, it's just horizontal. That means that it was collecting data before it was pushed. We want to delete that data, right? We can see after about 2 seconds, we can see probably hit somebody's foot, right? This is irrelevant data. So we want to delete that data up to about 0.1 seconds. Watch what I'm going to do here, guys. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to highlight the row numbers. So click on the row numbers up to about 1 second, maybe a little bit past. I don't want to just delete that data. I want to actually delete the rows. When I delete those rows up to 1 second, look what happens. It automatically updated the graph to not reflect that data. Now, I also want to delete after about 2 seconds. So let's go after about 2 seconds here. Let's highlight those rows again. I don't want to delete the data. I want to delete the rows. Oh, look at that. That's way better, isn't it? Now we're going to add a trend line, which is going to be a linear trend line because it should be a straight line. And then we're going to show an equation. Just watch this. Don't even try to do this. Just watch it, okay? Click on those three bars, those three buttons in the top right-hand corner, edit chart. You're not going to have time to do this, so don't even try. Just watch. Edit chart. Go over to customize, and you're going to click on series. You're going to scroll down under series to where it says trend line. Add that trend line. Now, that trend line appears blue for me. I can change the color if I want. It doesn't really matter. I just made it red. I like it red. Change the opacity to make it a little bit brighter. Oh, now it's a nice bright red line. That's up to you. As long as I can see the trend line, as long as it's clear, we're good. Doesn't matter what color it is. Finally, scroll down a little bit further to where it says label. Where it says label, I want you to click, it's going to say none by default. I want you to click on label and then click use equation. Don't click that show R squared. That's not what you want. We don't want R squared. We want to label, use equation. And look what just happened. The equation, one second, the equation for that graph just popped up. 0.834x plus negative 0.743. Y equals mx plus b. The slope of this graph, or the velocity of your car, was 0.834 meters per second.